My name is Piper Thompson, and I'm 34 years old. Right now, I'm sitting in my lawyer's office, my hands still trembling as I hold the final divorce papers I just signed. After 2 years of separation, it's officially over. My 8-year-old daughter Emma is waiting at home with the babysitter, probably wondering why mommy looks so tired these days. What she doesn't know is that her father, the man who walked away when we needed him most, has suddenly decided he wants back into our lives. Not to apologize, not to make amends, but to control us. Before I tell you how this nightmare began and how I learned to fight back, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button if you've ever had to make impossible choices to protect what matters most. Subscribe because this story is about finding strength when you feel completely powerless, and I promise you'll walk away with tools to set boundaries that no one can cross. Looking back now, it's hard to believe how different everything used to be. I met Tyler Brooks during our junior year at Oregon State University. He was studying engineering, I was in graphic design, and we literally bumped into each other at the campus coffee shop when he accidentally knocked over my portfolio. While helping me pick up scattered design sketches, he started asking intelligent questions about my work, genuinely interested in my creative process. Tyler had this magnetic confidence that drew people to him. He always seemed to have a plan, whether it was for his weekend study schedule or his 5-year career goals. Our relationship developed naturally over late-night study sessions and weekend adventures exploring the Oregon coast. Tyler would drive us to hidden beaches where we'd sit on driftwood logs, talking about our dreams while watching waves crash against the rocks. He wanted to build sustainable housing developments. I wanted to create brand identities for small businesses. Everything felt possible when we were together. After graduation, we moved to Portland, where Tyler landed a position with a respected construction company. I started freelancing, taking on logo designs and website projects for local restaurants and boutiques. We rented a cozy apartment in the Alberta district, filling it with secondhand furniture. We'd refinish together on weekends. Tyler would measure and cut wood while I painted and designed custom stencils. Those early years felt like building something beautiful from nothing. When we got married at 25, we kept the ceremony small and intimate. My parents flew in from Arizona. Tyler's family came from Salem, and we exchanged vows in my friend's backyard garden, surrounded by blooming lavender and string lights. Tyler's speech that day still echoes in my memory. Piper makes me want to be the kind of man who deserves her love every single day. The first few years of marriage felt like floating on air. Tyler would surprise me with handwritten notes tucked into my design portfolio, and I'd leave small sketches on his engineering plans. We'd spend Sunday mornings reading different sections of the newspaper in bed, sharing interesting articles, and planning weekend projects. When clients praised my work, Tyler celebrated like the success was his own. Then came the news that changed everything. I was pregnant. Tyler's reaction was pure joy. He immediately started researching cribs and car seat safety ratings, even beginning sketches for a nursery addition to whatever house we'd eventually buy. When Emma arrived, those first months were exhausting but magical. Tyler would wake up for night feeding, singing softly to our daughter while I dozed nearby. He'd come home from work and immediately reach for Emma, spending hours just watching her sleep. But somewhere around Emma's second birthday, subtle changes started appearing. Tyler began working longer hours, claiming big projects demanded his attention. He'd arrive home after Emma's bedtime, missing the silly conversations and bedtime stories that used to be our family time. When I'd ask about his day, his answers became shorter, more distant. The man who used to share every detail of his work life suddenly had nothing to say. Financial pressure started building when Tyler's company lost several major contracts. His salary got cut by 20%, and suddenly our comfortable budget became a constant source of stress. Tyler handled this poorly, becoming irritable and defensive whenever I suggested adjustments to our spending or ways I could increase my income. He'd snap at minor inconveniences like Emma spilling juice on his work papers or me asking him to pick up groceries on his way home. The breaking point came when Emma turned 6 and developed a severe case of pneumonia. What should have been a routine cold escalated quickly, and our pediatrician insisted on immediate hospitalization. I spent 7 straight days sleeping on a hospital chair beside Emma's bed, watching monitors and helping nurses with her breathing treatments. Tyler visited exactly twice during that entire week. The first time he stayed 20 minutes before claiming he had an important work meeting. The second visit lasted even shorter when Tyler's phone kept ringing and he stepped outside to take calls. On the fourth night, while Emma struggled with a fever that wouldn't break, I called Tyler, begging him to come. "I need you here," I whispered, trying not to wake our daughter. "Emma keeps asking where Daddy is." Tyler's response still cuts deep. "You're handling it fine, Piper. I trust you to take care of everything." That's when I realized I was already raising Emma alone. The confrontation happened 3 days after we brought Emma home from the hospital. She was finally eating solid food again, and her breathing had returned to normal, but the experience had left me emotionally raw. When Tyler walked in that evening, I was determined to address what had happened during our daughter's medical crisis. "We need to talk about last week," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, while Emma colored at the kitchen table nearby. Tyler immediately became defensive, setting down his work bag, with more force than necessary. "What about it? Emma's fine now, isn't she?" His dismissive tone ignited something in me. "Fine, Tyler, our 6-year-old was hospitalized with pneumonia, and you acted like it was an inconvenience to your schedule." Tyler's jaw tightened, and he glanced toward Emma before lowering his voice. "I was dealing with a work crisis, Piper. Someone had to keep earning money to pay for that hospital stay. But I had already done my research. I had called his office the previous day, worried about the work emergency he kept mentioning. His supervisor, Janet, sounded confused when I asked about the urgent project keeping Tyler away from the hospital. Tyler took personal time last week," she had said. "There wasn't any major deadline he was handling." When I shared this information, Tyler's explanation shifted immediately. Now the crisis became meetings with potential new clients, networking events essential for his career advancement, stress management activities his therapist had recommended. Each new story contradicted the previous one, and Tyler seemed genuinely surprised that I expected consistency in his explanations. "You're checking up on me now," he asked, his voice taking on a cold edge I had never heard before. "Calling my work, interrogating people about my schedule." The accusation stung because it was partially true. I had never felt the need to verify Tyler's words before, but something fundamental had shifted during Emma's illness. Our financial situation continued deteriorating when Tyler lost his job 2 months later. The company cited budget cuts, but Tyler's supervisor had mentioned attitude problems and missed deadlines during their final conversation. Instead of immediately searching for new employment, Tyler decided he needed time to reassess his career direction and explore his options. While Tyler spent his days sleeping late and researching business ideas that never materialized, I increased my client load dramatically. I was designing logos before dawn, building websites during Emma's school hours, and editing marketing materials after she went to bed. The constant work pressure left me exhausted, but Tyler seemed oblivious to my stress. Emma began asking difficult questions that I struggled to answer honestly. "Why doesn't Daddy go to work anymore?" she wondered aloud during breakfast. "Sarah's daddy goes to his office every day." When Tyler overheard these conversations, he would become defensive and moody, sometimes disappearing for hours without explanation. One evening, while using Tyler's laptop to send a client presentation, I noticed a notification from a messaging app I didn't recognize. My finger hovered over the screen for several seconds before curiosity won. The conversation thread showed regular communication with someone named Stephanie, filled with inside jokes and references to places they had been together recently. When I asked Tyler about Stephanie that night, his reaction was immediate and rehearsed. "She's just a former coworker from my previous job," he explained smoothly. "We grab coffee occasionally to discuss industry contacts and job opportunities." But the messages I had glimpsed didn't sound like professional networking. They were warm, personal, filled with shared memories and future plans. Tyler's absences from home became more frequent and less explained. He would leave after breakfast, claiming job interviews or networking meetings, but return with no concrete results or follow-up plans. When Emma asked where Daddy was going, I found myself making excuses. I didn't believe myself. My intuition kept insisting something was seriously wrong, but I lacked concrete evidence, and Tyler's explanations always sounded plausible on the surface. He was looking for work, meeting with contacts, following leads. Meanwhile, our savings account dwindled, while I worked increasingly longer hours to cover our expenses. Emma started exhibiting signs of stress that broke my heart. She became clingy and worried, frequently asking if our family was okay. Her teachers mentioned that she seemed distracted during class and had begun biting her fingernails, a habit she had never had before. At home, she would hover near me while I worked, as if afraid I might disappear too. The morning that changed everything started like any other Tuesday. Except Tyler was moving around the bedroom before dawn, quietly gathering clothes and personal items. I pretended to sleep while watching him pack a duffel bag, with deliberate care, choosing specific photographs and belongings with the precision of someone who had been planning this moment. When I finally woke up officially 2 hours later, Tyler was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a folded piece of paper placed prominently beside his empty plate. Emma was still sleeping, and the house felt eerily quiet. Tyler looked up when I entered, his expression distant and already detached. "I wrote you a letter," he said simply, pushing the paper toward me. "I need time to figure out who I am and what I want from life. This isn't working anymore, Piper. I'm not ready for this level of responsibility." His words were delivered with the emotional weight of someone discussing weekend dinner plans. The letter was brief and devastating. "I know this seems sudden, but I've been thinking about this for months. You and Emma deserve better than someone who feels trapped and resentful. I need space to discover what makes me happy before I can be a good husband and father. Don't try to contact me right away. I'll reach out when I'm ready." Emma woke up 30 minutes after Tyler had driven away, padding into the kitchen in her favorite unicorn pajamas and asking her usual question, "Where's Daddy?" For the first time in her life, I had no answer that made sense. How do you explain abandonment to a 7-year-old who still believes her father hung the moon? Daddy had to go on a work trip. I managed hating myself for the lie, even as it bought me time to process what had actually happened. Emma accepted this explanation easily, having grown accustomed to Tyler's frequent absences over the previous months. She ate her cereal while chattering about her upcoming school science project, completely unaware that our family structure had just collapsed. I spent the next several hours calling Tyler's phone, obsessively leaving increasingly frantic voicemails that progressed from confused to angry to desperate. Every call went straight to voicemail, and my text messages remained unread. By evening, I was alternating between fury and panic, unsure whether something terrible had happened or whether Tyler had simply chosen to disappear. Emma's bedtime routine became an exercise in maintaining normalcy, while my world crumbled internally. I read her usual 3 stories, sang the lullaby Tyler used to sing, and answered her questions about Daddy's return, with vague promises about soon and when his work is finished. After she fell asleep, I sat in our living room, staring at wedding photos, and wondering how I had missed the signs that Tyler was preparing to leave. Financial reality hit immediately. Tyler had been unemployed, but his name was on our lease, our joint bank account, and our car insurance. Without his signature, I couldn't make changes to any of these essential arrangements. I had been supporting us financially for months, but now I also had to navigate legal and administrative complications I had never anticipated. 3 weeks passed without any communication from Tyler. Emma's questions about Daddy's work trip became more pointed and harder to deflect. She started asking specific questions. What kind of work is Daddy doing? When exactly is he coming home? Can we call him tonight? I found myself inventing increasingly elaborate explanations while simultaneously trying to track down Tyler's actual whereabouts. The breakthrough came through Tyler's friend Marcus, who mentioned during a chance encounter at the grocery store that Tyler seemed happy in Seattle and that Stephanie was really good for him. This casual comment revealed everything I needed to know. Tyler hadn't left to find himself. He had left to start a new life with someone else, and he had been planning it for months while lying to my face daily. That night, after putting Emma to bed, I sat in my car in our driveway and sobbed until my chest ached. The grief was complex and overwhelming, mourning the marriage I thought we had, grieving the father Emma deserved, and processing the betrayal of Tyler's calculated deception. But underneath the pain, a seed of determination began growing. Emma and I deserved better than this abandonment, and somehow I was going to build that better life for us. 6 months after Tyler's disappearance, Emma and I had developed a new routine that started feeling less like survival and more like actual living. The initial shock and daily crisis management gradually gave way to something resembling stability, though it required every ounce of creativity and determination I possessed. My graphic design business experienced unexpected growth during this period, partly from necessity and partly from renewed focus. Without Tyler's negativity and constant distractions, I was able to concentrate fully on client projects and pursue opportunities I had previously ignored. I landed a major contract designing marketing materials for a local restaurant chain, which provided steady income for the first time in over a year. Emma surprised me with her resilience and adaptability. After the first month of asking about Daddy's return, she seemed to accept our new reality and actually began thriving in our calmer household environment. Her teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, commented on Emma's improved focus and participation during parent-teacher conferences. "She seems more relaxed and confident this semester," Mrs. Rodriguez observed. Whatever changes you've made at home are definitely benefiting her academically. I connected with other single mothers through Emma's school and discovered an entire community of women navigating similar challenges. Jennifer Martinez became my closest friend during this period. Her husband had left when her son was 5, and she had spent 3 years building an independent life as a real estate agent. Jennifer offered practical advice about everything from legal procedures to emotional healing, but more importantly, she provided living proof that single motherhood could lead to genuine happiness. Our Saturday morning coffee meetings became sacred time, where I could express fears and frustrations without judgment. The first year is about surviving, Jennifer told me during one particularly difficult conversation. The second year is about recognizing your own strength. By the third year, you might actually prefer your life this way. At the time, her words seemed impossible to believe, but I was beginning to glimpse what she meant. Emma and I created new traditions that had nothing to do with Tyler or our previous family structure. Tuesday nights became cooking adventures, where we would attempt recipes from library cookbooks, often with hilariously disastrous results. Emma loved documenting our kitchen experiments with my digital camera, creating what she called our cookbook of silly mistakes. These photos captured us laughing while covered in flour, celebrating burnt cookies, and discovering that we actually enjoyed each other's company immensely. Weekend mornings transformed from Tyler's sleeping in and general household tension to Emma and I exploring Portland's parks, museums, and farmers markets. Emma became my adventure partner, and we discovered parts of our city I had never bothered visiting when Tyler was around. She was curious, observant, and surprisingly good company for someone who was only 7 years old. My relationship with my mother, Sarah Thompson, deepened significantly during this period. She had offered to move in permanently to help with Emma, but I wanted to prove to myself that I could manage independently. Instead, she visited every few weeks, providing emotional support and practical help while respecting my need for autonomy. "I'm proud of how you're handling this," she told me one evening while we watched Emma practice cartwheels in the backyard. "You're stronger than you realize." Financial independence felt incredibly empowering after years of Tyler's unemployment and poor money management. I created detailed budgets, established savings goals, and even began contributing to Emma's college fund. For the first time in my adult life, every financial decision was mine to make, and I discovered I was actually quite good at managing money when I didn't have to compensate for someone else's irresponsibility. Emma started expressing feelings about our family situation with remarkable emotional intelligence. "Mommy, I like it better when it's just us," she confided one evening while I helped her with homework. "Our house feels happier now." Her observation was both heartbreaking and liberating. Tyler's absence had created space for joy that I hadn't realized was missing. By month 8, I was ready to begin dating again, though cautiously. David Walsh, a third-grade teacher at Emma's school, had been making gentle conversation during pickup times and school events. He was kind, patient with children, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know both Emma and me. Our first date was a family-friendly afternoon at the zoo, where I could observe how he interacted with my daughter. Emma liked him immediately, which felt like the most important endorsement possible. The divorce proceedings moved forward smoothly since Tyler remained unreachable and unresponsive to legal documents. My attorney, Rachel Foster, specialized in cases involving abandonment and was able to proceed with dissolution based on Tyler's extended absence and refusal to participate in family responsibilities. "This is actually simpler than contested divorces," Rachel explained. "When someone completely disappears, the court recognizes that the marriage has effectively ended." 13 months after Tyler left, I was sitting in Rachel's office signing the final divorce papers when everything felt suddenly surreal. The marriage that had once defined my entire adult identity was officially over, reduced to signatures on legal documents. Emma was thriving, my business was successful, and I was genuinely happy. Tyler's abandonment, which had initially felt like complete devastation, had actually freed us to build a better life than we had ever had before. 2 years and 3 months after Tyler walked out of our lives, he returned without warning on a Wednesday afternoon in September. I was working on a logo design for a new bakery when I heard Emma's voice from the front yard, high-pitched with excitement. "Daddy, Daddy's here!" The sound froze my blood and sent my stomach plummeting. Looking through the living room window, I saw Tyler climbing out of a silver sedan I didn't recognize, dressed in an expensive-looking suit and moving with the confident stride of someone whose life had significantly improved. He looked healthier, more polished, and completely comfortable as Emma ran toward him, with the unreserved joy that children show when beloved people reappear in their lives. My hands were shaking as I walked outside, my mind racing through thousands of possible responses while trying to maintain composure for Emma's sake. Tyler looked up from hugging our daughter and smiled at me with the same charming expression that had attracted me in college, as if his 2-year disappearance was a minor inconvenience we could easily overlook. "Hello, Piper," he said warmly, his voice carrying none of the tension or defensiveness that had characterized his final months living with us. "You look great. Really great." Tyler's appearance had changed dramatically. He had gained healthy weight, his hair was professionally styled, and his clothing suggested financial success that certainly hadn't existed when he left us struggling. Emma was clinging to Tyler's hand, bouncing with excitement and talking rapidly about school, her friends and activities she wanted to show him. "Daddy, I learned to ride my bike without training wheels, and I can do multiplication now. Mommy and I made a fort in the backyard." Her innocent enthusiasm broke my heart while simultaneously making me furious at Tyler for missing these milestones and then appearing to claim credit for them. "We need to talk," Tyler said, his tone shifting slightly towards something more serious. "Privately, about Emma's future and my role in her life moving forward." The presumption in his words was staggering. He spoke as if his role in Emma's life was simply on pause, rather than completely abandoned through his own choice. I agreed to let Tyler take Emma to the nearby park for 1 hour, while we talked, partly because Emma was so excited to show him her playground skills, and partly because I needed time to process this surreal situation. Watching them walk away together, Tyler pointing out changes in our neighborhood, while Emma chattered beside him, felt like watching a movie about someone else's life. When they returned, Tyler's approach became more direct and calculated. "I've been doing a lot of thinking and growing over the past couple years." He began settling into our patio chair, as if he belonged there. "I realize I made mistakes, and I want to make things right. Emma needs her father in her life, and I'm ready to step up and be the dad she deserves." His words sounded rehearsed and carefully chosen, like a presentation he had practiced. Tyler explained that he had been in therapy working on personal issues and gaining perspective on his priorities. He had a new job in project management, was financially stable, and felt ready for the responsibilities of fatherhood. Everything he said focused on his growth, his readiness, his timeline, with no acknowledgement of the damage his abandonment had caused. "I want regular visitation with Emma," Tyler continued, leaning forward with earnest eye contact. "Every other weekend, maybe one evening during the week, and alternating holidays. I think shared custody would be best for everyone involved." The audacity of his request was breathtaking. He was discussing custody arrangements as if Emma was a possession he had temporarily stored somewhere and was now ready to retrieve. When I pointed out that he had voluntarily abandoned us and remained completely absent for over 2 years, Tyler's demeanor shifted subtly. His charm became more forced, and an edge of irritation crept into his voice. "I never abandoned anyone, Piper. I told you I needed time to work on myself so I could be a better father and husband. Sometimes adults have to make difficult decisions for the greater good." Tyler's revised version of history was stunning in its dishonesty. According to his new narrative, his departure had been a temporary self-improvement sabbatical rather than abandonment. He had been getting his life together so he could provide better for his family. There was no mention of Stephanie, no acknowledgement of his calculated deception, and no recognition of the financial and emotional hardship he had left behind. "Emma has been fine without me for this long," Tyler said, his patience clearly wearing thin as I challenged his revisionist account. "But now she's getting older and she needs male influence in her life. I'm her father, Piper. I have rights and I intend to exercise them. We can do this cooperatively, or we can involve lawyers and let the court decide what's best for Emma." The threat was delivered calmly but unmistakably. Tyler was prepared to use the legal system to force his way back into Emma's life, regardless of the disruption this might cause. He seemed confident that his parental rights would supersede the practical reality of his extended absence and Emma's current stability. That evening, after Tyler left with promises to work out the details, soon Emma was confused and overstimulated. She asked dozens of questions I couldn't answer. Why had Daddy been gone so long? Where had he been living? Was he moving back home? Would we be a family again? Her excitement was mixed with uncertainty that broke my heart all over again. Tyler's legal offensive began exactly 1 week later when Rachel Foster called to inform me that her office had received custody modification papers from Tyler's attorney. He was formally requesting joint physical custody, claiming that my refusal to facilitate a relationship between Emma and her father constituted parental alienation and was not in Emma's best interests. The legal documents portrayed me as a vindictive ex-wife who had deliberately prevented Tyler from maintaining contact with his daughter. According to his filing, Tyler had repeatedly attempted to remain involved in Emma's life, but had been systematically excluded and discouraged from participating in parenting decisions. The characterization was so completely false that I felt physically sick reading it. Tyler had hired an expensive family law firm that specialized in fathers' rights cases. His attorney, Robert Chen, had a reputation for aggressive tactics and successful outcomes in contested custody disputes. The legal papers included character references from Tyler's employer, his therapist, and several friends, all testifying to his stability, commitment to fatherhood, and readiness for increased parental responsibilities. Rachel immediately began preparing our defense, but she warned me that abandoned parent cases could be complicated. Courts generally favor maintaining relationships between children and both parents, she explained during our emergency meeting. Tyler's absence will work in your favor, but judges also consider a parent's demonstrated commitment to change and rehabilitation. Tyler wasted no time implementing his visitation demands while the legal proceedings moved forward. He insisted on picking Emma up from school every Friday afternoon, taking her for weekend outings that involved expensive activities like theme parks, shopping trips, and restaurant meals. Emma returned from these visits excited but emotionally confused, carrying gift bags full of toys and clothes that Tyler used to demonstrate his newfound financial stability. The manipulation was subtle but constant. Tyler would ask Emma leading questions about her life at home, fishing for information he could use to suggest I was somehow inadequate as a single parent. "Does Mommy seem tired a lot?" he would wonder aloud. "Do you wish you had more toys and games? Would you like to spend more time with Daddy?" Emma, being 8 years old, couldn't recognize these conversations as evidence gathering. After a month of regular visits, Tyler escalated his demands. He wanted Emma to spend entire weekends at his new apartment, claiming that day visits weren't sufficient to build a meaningful father-daughter relationship. When I expressed concerns about overnight visits given Tyler's recent return and Emma's need for stability, he accused me of being obstructive and threatened to petition the court for emergency custody relief. Emma began exhibiting signs of stress that mirrored her behavior during Tyler's final months before leaving. She started having difficulty sleeping, became clingy during the day, and her academic performance declined noticeably. Mrs. Rodriguez requested a parent conference to discuss Emma's increased anxiety and difficulty concentrating during school hours. "Emma seems torn between two worlds," Mrs. Rodriguez observed diplomatically. "She talks about exciting weekend activities with her father, but she also expresses worry about changes in her family situation. Children thrive on consistency and predictability, especially children who've experienced family disruption before." Tyler's manipulation extended beyond Emma to include our extended family and mutual friends. He contacted my mother, presenting himself as a reformed man who was being unfairly punished for past mistakes. He reached out to old college friends, sharing his version of events, where I had become bitter and vindictive after our marriage ended. Several people who had supported me during Tyler's absence began suggesting that I should give him another chance for Emma's sake. The psychological pressure was enormous. Tyler had resources I lacked: expensive legal representation, financial stability, and endless time to focus on this custody battle. I was still running my design business, managing Emma's daily needs, and now dealing with legal proceedings that consumed huge amounts of mental and emotional energy. During supervised visits mandated by the court, Tyler was charming and attentive, demonstrating exactly the kind of engaged fathering that he had never shown during our marriage. He helped Emma with homework, played board games with enthusiasm, and listened patiently to her stories about school friends. These visits created a version of Tyler that Emma had never experienced before, making his absence during her early childhood seem even more confusing and painful. Jennifer became my anchor during this period, reminding me that Tyler's sudden parenting excellence was likely performance rather than genuine change. "Abusers and manipulators can be incredibly charming when they want something," she warned during one of our coffee meetings. "The question isn't whether Tyler can be a good father for 2 hours on Saturday afternoon. The question is whether he's actually committed to Emma's well-being or just committed to winning this power struggle with you." As the custody hearing approached, Tyler's true motivations became increasingly clear. This wasn't about reconnecting with Emma or making amends for his abandonment. This was about reasserting control over my life and proving that his choices didn't have permanent consequences. Tyler wanted to return to our lives on his terms, without accountability for the damage he had caused, and with legal backing to ensure I couldn't exclude him again. The custody hearing took place on a cold November morning in the Multnomah County Courthouse, with Tyler and I seated at opposite tables, while Emma waited in a child advocate's office down the hall. Rachel had prepared me extensively for this moment, but nothing could have readied me for the surreal experience of listening to Tyler's attorney paint me as an unfit mother who had weaponized my daughter against her father. Robert Chen presented Tyler as a sympathetic figure who had made mistakes but demonstrated genuine commitment to personal growth and parental responsibility. Tyler testified that his temporary absence had been necessary for mental health treatment and career stabilization, claiming he had always intended to return and resume his role as an active father. His therapist testified about Tyler's progress in addressing anger management and commitment issues through 18 months of intensive counseling. Tyler's new employer provided character testimony describing him as reliable, hardworking, and dedicated to professional excellence. Financial documents showed steady income, responsible spending habits, and a savings account that could provide security for Emma's future needs. Tyler had clearly spent months building a case designed to make his abandonment look like responsible self-improvement rather than selfish betrayal. When my turn came to testify, Rachel walked me through the timeline of Tyler's departure, his complete absence during Emma's illness and recovery, the financial hardship his abandonment had created, and Emma's subsequent emotional healing in our stable single-parent household. I presented documentation of Tyler's unemployment, his lies about work obligations during Emma's hospitalization, and his refusal to respond to any communication for over 2 years. The most powerful testimony came from Dr. Patricia Williams, the child psychologist who had been working with Emma since Tyler's return. Dr. Williams had conducted extensive interviews with Emma about her feelings regarding her father's absence and sudden reappearance. Her professional assessment was devastating to Tyler's case. Emma exhibits classic symptoms of abandonment anxiety, Dr. Williams testified. She expresses love for her father, but also significant confusion about his reliability and commitment to her well-being. Emma has stated multiple times that she feels safer and more secure when living with her mother full-time. She enjoys visits with her father, but becomes anxious about potential changes to her primary living arrangement. Dr. Williams continued, "In my professional opinion, Emma has experienced trauma from her father's sudden departure and extended absence. While she benefits from having some contact with her father, dramatic changes to her custody arrangement could re-traumatize her and undermine the stability she has achieved over the past 2 years." Tyler's attorney attempted to discredit Dr. Williams' assessment by suggesting that Emma's responses had been influenced by my negative attitude toward Tyler. But Emma's own words recorded during private sessions with the psychologist spoke for themselves. When asked about her family preferences, Emma had said, "I love Daddy, but I don't understand why he left me. Mommy never leaves me. I want to live with Mommy because she takes care of me every day." The Judge Honorable Margaret Chen asked pointed questions about Tyler's extended absence and his failure to maintain any contact with Emma during his self-described healing period. Tyler's explanations became increasingly convoluted as he tried to justify complete abandonment as responsible parenting. His claim that he had been protecting Emma from his emotional instability by disappearing entirely struck the judge as particularly unconvincing. Rachel presented evidence of my consistent employment, stable housing, community involvement, and Emma's academic and social success under my sole custody. Bank records showed regular deposits to Emma's college fund, detailed budgets that prioritized her needs, and responsible financial management despite single-income constraints. Character witnesses included Emma's teachers, my business clients, and Jennifer, all testifying to my dedication as a parent and Emma's obvious well-being in my care. The court's decision was more favorable than I had dared hope. Judge Chen granted me primary physical custody, with Tyler receiving supervised visitation every other Saturday for 4 hours. Tyler would be required to complete additional parenting classes and continue therapy before any expansion of visitation could be considered. The judge specifically noted that Tyler's 2-year absence demonstrated a concerning pattern of prioritizing personal convenience over parental responsibility. While the court recognizes the importance of maintaining parent-child relationships, Judge Chen stated, Mr. Brooks' extended abandonment of his daughter and his failure to contribute to her financial or emotional support during a critical developmental period raises serious questions about his commitment to Emma's welfare. Any expansion of custody or visitation will depend on Mr. Brooks demonstrating sustained reliability and genuine prioritization of Emma's needs over his own preferences. Tyler's reaction to the ruling was immediate and telling. Instead of accepting the court's decision gracefully and focusing on rebuilding his relationship with Emma gradually, he stormed out of the courtroom, muttering about appealing the decision and finding a more reasonable judge. His attorney followed quickly, clearly, trying to prevent Tyler from saying anything that could damage future legal proceedings. That evening, Emma asked me directly, "Mommy, do I have to go live with Daddy?" When I explained the court's decision and reassured her that her primary home would remain with me. The relief on her face was unmistakable. "I was scared I would have to leave you," she admitted. "I like seeing Daddy sometimes, but I want to live with you always." Over the following months, Tyler's enthusiasm for fatherhood waned significantly when he realized he couldn't use Emma to control or manipulate me. His supervised visits became irregular, often canceled at the last minute due to work obligations or other priorities. By spring, Tyler was seeing Emma perhaps twice per month, and his interest seemed to decrease each time his attempts to expand custody were rejected by the court. Emma adapted to this reality with remarkable resilience. She enjoyed the time she did spend with Tyler, but no longer waited anxiously for his calls or visits. Her life had returned to the stable, predictable routine that allowed her to thrive academically and socially. She was happy, confident, and secure in our family of two. The most important outcome of this entire ordeal was learning to establish and maintain boundaries that protected both Emma and myself from manipulation and emotional harm. Tyler had taught me that kindness without boundaries becomes weakness that people will exploit. Love without limits becomes enabling that hurts everyone involved. I learned to document everything, communicate only through official channels, and never make decisions based on guilt or pressure from others. When Tyler complained that I was being difficult or unforgiving, I reminded myself that protecting Emma was more important than being perceived as agreeable. Setting boundaries isn't cruelty, it's clarity about what behavior will and won't be tolerated. Looking back now, Tyler's return taught Emma and me that we had built something beautiful and strong together, something that couldn't be destroyed by manipulation or legal threats. We discovered that our little family was complete exactly as it was. David has become a wonderful partner who respects both Emma and our independence, supporting our goals rather than trying to control them. Emma is now 10 years old, thriving in school, and surrounded by people who prioritize her well-being every single day. She has learned that love means consistency, reliability, and putting loved ones' needs before your own convenience. Tyler's sporadic presence in her life has actually reinforced these lessons by providing a clear contrast between genuine love and selfish manipulation. The most profound lesson from this experience is that sometimes protecting the people you love most requires saying no to people who once meant everything to you. Healthy relationships don't require you to sacrifice your peace, compromise your values, or accept treatment that damages your well-being. Real love creates safety, not chaos. Sometimes the people who claim to love you will try to convince you that your boundaries are unreasonable, your standards are too high, or your expectations are unfair. But you have the right to insist that love includes respect, that relationships require reciprocity, and that trust must be earned through consistent actions rather than promised through persuasive words. Emma and I learned that building a life based on mutual respect, shared responsibility, and genuine care creates a foundation strong enough to withstand any storm. We discovered that happiness doesn't require perfect circumstances or other people's approval. It requires the courage to protect what matters most, even when that protection costs you relationships with people you once trusted completely. What challenges have you faced in setting boundaries with people who don't respect your well-being? Share your experiences in the comments below, because your story might give someone else the courage they need to protect themselves and their children. Hit the like button if this story reminded you that you deserve relationships built on respect, rather than manipulation. Subscribe for more stories about finding strength in difficult situations and learning to prioritize your own peace over other people's comfort. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear that they have the right to say no to people who try to control their lives. Thank you for listening to my story, and for supporting women who are learning to put their family's well-being first. Remember that you are stronger than you realize, braver than you believe, and worthy of relationships that build you up rather than tear you down. Take care of yourselves and each other because you deserve all the love and respect you give to others.